What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are here with another episode of Lions Latest, where we go through the latest Detroit Lions news. And today's a pretty fun episode. We're going to go through some of the latest news, but we also have some rumors that are swirling out there. This is the season of rumors. I don't know if rumors ever end, actually. I think that just kind of goes the entire season. Hey, rumors are 365, but specifically in the offseason, they start to become crazy. And I don't even know if I would call all of these rumors as much as it's just an idea or something that's thrown out there. So I thought we'd discuss a few of those things just for the heck of it. But we also have some Lions news to discuss. Just a lot to dive into today. We also got to hear from Hutchinson. He was on the Pat McAfee show, and I think some of the answers that he gave make it very interesting as a potential draft pick for the Lions. So let's get it started.
The city's been down, and it found a way to get up. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. We're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome, everybody, to another video. Glad you guys are here, and I'm excited to be back with another one of these episodes, man. We just uploaded a Chad Muma draft profile, so make sure you check it out if you have not yet. If you guys want to know a little bit about Chad Muma, that video is a little bit on the longer side, even for our draft profile videos. I'm not going to lie. I'm not sure how it got that long, actually. Like, I was going and editing it, and I got done with, like, the main clip, you know, because they break down into different segments, and I was like, oh, this video even that long. And then I realized there was no intro, and I'm like, oh, snap, okay, I didn't put the intro in yet. So I put the intro in, and I realized the intro was like 14 minutes. And I'm like, how did that happen? So that video got a little bit longer than it was supposed to be, but overall, I thought it was good, and there were a lot of clips in there to take a look at. But anyways, we have some Lions news to discuss today, and there was some very, I would say, scary news that came up yesterday. First off, shout out to Michael Banks being named a finalist. That was on NFL Network. I was watching it. I got my reaction to it. My reaction was terrible because my voice sounded jacked up, but the point is I was hyped. So congratulations, Michael Banks, and I want to give a huge thank you to all of you guys for voting. I know I've been pushing the links in the community in our live streams, and I do appreciate it for anyone that's voted. Maybe you haven't met him before, maybe you have. I know we've had him on a couple of our live shows just to kind of introduce himself. As Lions fans, honestly, we should be proud that we were able to do that. I think that's really cool, and it's something that we can control. We came together and we made that thing happen. So, okay, clap it up for yourself. Wherever you're at, give yourself a little clap. I think that was awesome. But we have to start with some Lions news, and this was a little bit of alarming news that I actually saw pop up when I was watching that show. It was scrolling across the bottom, and that was that Vikings were requesting to interview Detroit Lions defensive backs coach Aubrey Pleasant for the defensive coordinator job. And I was like, hold up, where did this come from? And I was immediately frustrated. Like, that was my initial reaction. I was mad. I was like, really? We just got done with all this Aaron Glenn stuff. You know, the Saints hired their head coach Dennis Allen, who is their current DC. And now all of a sudden, Aubrey Pleasant's name's coming up for the Vikings. Like, what are the Vikings doing? Especially when it's another divisional team, I get even more mad. Not mad for Aubrey Pleasant. I mean, if he gets an opportunity to be a DC, go do it, Aubrey. Do your thing. I mean, your background, your resume, it says it all. You're well-deserved to get that kind of job. But I didn't want to lose Aubrey Pleasant. You know, I really don't want to lose this guy. Not 1 year into it, just like I didn't want to lose Aaron Glenn, because Aubrey Pleasant, first off, was my favorite offseason hiring of any coach. I mean, of course, Dan Campbell starts it all, but the hiring of Aubrey Pleasant was my favorite of an individual, because just when you look at what he's done with the LA Rams, working with cornerbacks, and when he started to work with safeties, production that he got out of some of the players that he was working with, the improvements. I mean, you saw with everybody from Jalen Ramsey, the improvements that he made, to also your small UDFAs like Kevin Patterson, who really can't even find a spot now on a team, who was crazy in the 6 games that he played with the LA Rams. Like, the guy was outstanding, and every person he seemed to work with got better. And he's been praised by a lot of people being, you know, the best defensive backs coach that they've been around. I know Jalen Ramsey gave him a lot of praise as well. And you could just tell by his interviews and stuff that he's probably a pretty cool guy. I was so pumped that we got Aubrey Pleasant. I was so hyped for him. And I think we saw that. I know Aaron Glenn gets a lot of the credit, as he should, but I think you definitely got to give a lot of credit to the guy that's working with that group individually. You know, just like Hank Fraley needs credit for what he did with the offensive line, I definitely got to credit what this guy did with the defensive backs. You know, Jerry Jacobs, Iffy, the improvement. I mean, we saw when guys were healthy, they improved throughout the year. Amani, everybody got better that played throughout the season. And we know really what he's known for is kind of the, I don't want to say altercation, but just a little back and forth with Jeff Okudah in week 1, because he felt like he had an opportunity to get an interception and he didn't drive down on the ball and make a play on it. So they got into it a little bit on the sideline, but I mean, we didn't make a big deal of it because it really wasn't a big deal. But I was so happy to get this guy, and to lose him after a season was just going to hurt. It really was, especially after we saw the growth that we saw from our defensive backs this past season. However, I think we have some good news here. See, the concern is that the Vikings are expected to hire Kevin O'Connell as their head coach, which is currently the Rams offensive coordinator. Now, I can see the fit schematically there. I can because, a team that likes to run the ball, they got Delvin Cook, they can zone run, hit you with the play action. And that kind of brings me some vibes back to Sean McVay with Jared Goff was there. A little bit of the Todd Gurley, being able to play action, roll out, get outside the pocket. Kirk Cousins, maybe he comes back. Maybe they trade him away. We'll see what they do with that. So I get it from a schematic standpoint. I still think they probably should have went with a guy that's proven and that's won a lot of games. But hey, Vikings, you do you. That connection there, it's very concerning because they were both there with the LA Rams. He knows him. This could definitely happen. To be honest, I actually don't know if Aubrey Pleasant actually interviewed with the Vikings. I know they requested to interview him. However, today, a new name has emerged, and it sounds like he's going to be the defensive coordinator. I don't want to say it's confirmed that that's going to be the case because I'm pretty sure there was a leak out there that it sounded like Aubrey Pleasant was going to end up being the defensive coordinator for the Vikings. But now all of a sudden, here we go, bam, another guy emerges for that role, and it's Ed Donatel. I think I'm saying his name right. He's a 65-year-old former defensive coordinator. He was with the Denver Broncos for a few seasons there. Fangio's an outstanding defensive mind, so I think it would make a lot of sense. Last year, he was a senior assistant for the Seattle Seahawks, but it sounds like he is now the favorite for that job and that he will end up being hired for the defensive coordinator position. Again, I'm not going to lock that in, but I hope that's the case, and to see that gives me a lot of relief, hopefully, that they'll go that direction instead of taking Aubrey Pleasant. Again, Aubrey Pleasant, Aaron Glenn, for all these guys that are trying to earn these up jobs, not that I don't want them to get them, because I do, and they've earned them. So, if you get an opportunity, take it. I'm not going to be mad at them, but I don't want to lose them. It's a little of that selfishness because I think we have something bright here with our coaching staff. Sure, we would have found a replacement, but man, I think Aubrey Pleasant is really good at what he does. And this is the strength of this team, is what we can do as a personnel, as a staff. And I think it's going to interest people, and I think it's going to interest players and free agents. And now apparently the report is that both sides are working on it, I guess, according to ESPN. But I got a little bit more news I want to sprinkle in here, and that is that the Lions have signed kicker Aldrick Rosas to a futures contract. It basically means, as we know with the futures contracts, there's really no guarantees there. It basically gets you into the offseason, programs to work through training camp, things like that. Just have a shot to compete for a job next season. It kind of just keeps you around. But at the same time, if it doesn't work out, the team really doesn't take kind of a loss there if they have to cut you. So they signed Aldrick Rosas to a futures contract. Now, last season, we kind of had a weird rotation of kickers going on, and you hate to see that, especially after having Matt Prater for years. We were kind of not used to it. I remember the gap between, Matt Prater. I think it was the gap between Jason Hanson and Matt Prater, the David Akers, and we were just bringing in guys left and right, and we just could not find a kicker. There were games that we lost because of that. The one that sticks with me is when we lost to Jim Schwartz when he was coaching the Bills. Might have been their DC, but I think he was coaching the Bills. That game we lost because we could not make a field goal sticks with me, man. And you hate to see that you got a rotation, a carousel going on. Don't want that to be the case. Some of it was because of COVID and injuries and things like that. But they have signed Aldrick Rosas to a futures deal. I think it makes sense. Keep him in, bring him back for competition. I mean, the guy last season only took one field goal, but he made it from 43 yards. He made his extra point. It was kind of weird because if you remember, we had Ryan Santoso plug in for Austin Seibert, who was our kicker, because we cut both of our kickers coming into the season. So when Santoso had to step in, it was good at first. He played against the Ravens. He made what could have been the game-winning field goals, the short field goal. And of course, we saw him down the road in the Steelers game where he couldn't make the field goals, right? He couldn't make his kicks in. He missed a game winner for us against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Detroit Lions cut him. And then they brought in two new kickers. They brought in a young player, Riley Patterson, out of Memphis, and they also went out and they brought in Aldrick Rosas, who's been around the league. He's had one really good season. So those two guys kind of were battling for it. And you see Rosas first, and he makes both his kicks, so you're like, all right, he's going to be the kicker next week. Then all of a sudden, next week, it's Riley Patterson. You're like, whoa, why did that happen? So they went with Riley Patterson. Patterson finished the season very strong. He was 13 for 14. I didn't realize he was that good. 13 for 14, 16 of 16 on extra points. His only miss was the kick plus 50 yards. But then, of course, you had Austin Seibert throughout the season, and Austin Seibert did pretty well when he was kicking as well. He was 10 for 12, not as good as Riley Patterson, but he did make one kick from 50-plus yards against the Minnesota Vikings. So we have kind of a weird kicking carousel. The good thing is that some of these guys actually played well. Seibert's under contract for next season already. He's under contract. You have Patterson, who's an exclusive rights free agent, so Lions won't make a decision there, but they could bring him back extremely cheap. And now you have Rosas on his futures contract. They could look to draft someone, bring someone new in. Free agency doesn't seem to look that great for kickers anyway, but the Lions have a lot of guys that'll be competing for that role. Who knows who's a kicker next year? I really don't know. It seemed like at first they were kind of like, yeah, we like Seibert for next season, but then Patterson was kind of balling, so it's like, okay, how do we not keep Seibert and bring him back for at least the competition? I'm sure they'll sign him to the exclusive rights deal, and he keep Aldrich Rosas in that mix. So it's going to be an interesting kicker battle, but the good thing is that a couple guys did show up when they had the chance to do it. I just hope we don't fall into a really big mess with the kicker position. That'll be one of the concerns this offseason. It's something that hopefully we get figured out, is the kicker position. You guys all know about the news. Ben Johnson is now our offensive coordinator. We hit on that in a video. Check that video if you have not. I think that video actually came out really good. I'm gonna be honest. You know, I ain't trying to like toot the horn or something, but when I got done with that, I was like, this feels good. And there was that segment where we looked at some clips, and I was like, that looks good. So I was very happy, proud of how we did in that video. So if you guys haven't checked it out, check it out. Ben Johnson is the new OC. I do have one concern though with that. I put together this little list of coaching hires around the NFC North. I could be missing some coaches here because some of these teams like the Vikings and Bears who go with a new GM and a new head coach, there's going to be a lot of turnover with those teams. There already has been with the Chicago Bears. So I definitely could be missing some names here, but here are the names that I've seen so far for these teams around the NFC North. The Packers probably won't have a ton of movement. I mean, they've lost a couple of pieces, but there's probably not a ton going on there. So for the Lions, it's weird. We're talking about, you know, not losing guys versus hiring people. And at this stage, it's the other teams around the NFC North who are talking about hiring different coaches. That doesn't seem to usually be the case. I wanted to point out a couple of the big names here. Here's the list that I have so far. Let's start with the middle real quick. So the Minnesota Vikings, as we said, they're expected to hire Kevin O'Connell when the Super Bowl is over. They have to wait for that. So they're expected to hire their offensive coordinator to be their head coach. That's expected. Justin Jefferson has talked about him being their head coach. So it's expected that's going to happen. Wes Phillips could possibly be their offensive coordinator. This has not been decided yet, but I've seen his name start to maybe become the favorite. He is the pass game coordinator and tight ends coach for the LA Rams. Again, they're playing in the Super Bowl, so that's something they'll have to wait on. So I'm sure we'll start getting more and more on the Vikings when they actually have their head coach here, because right now he's focused on now. That's kind of the thing with the defensive coordinator too, right? You're still kind of like, okay, but he's not really here yet, so I guess we could talk about it. A little note on the Vikings defensive coordinator position though, I could definitely see it making more sense for them to go with a defense coordinator a little bit older, a little more experienced. He's been in DC before, rather than a guy like Aubrey Pleasant, knowing that your head coach is an offensive-minded coach, to have a guy that has more experience in it to really take over the defensive side of the ball. So it could make more sense that they go with a guy like that over a guy like Aubrey Pleasant, because they have an offensive-minded coach. They do have their general manager in there. We know Mensa is in there. To add to their front office, they did hire Ryan Grigson for a senior role to help work in the front office. I guess this is kind of what the Lions did with John Dorsey. You're talking about a former general manager here. He was a general manager for the Indianapolis Colts, to come in and help out a little bit with a guy that's, you know, new to this. You're talking about a very young general manager. So to get someone that's done it and trying to just have him within the front office can't help. We did that last season with John Dorsey. We also did it on the coaching front as well with guys like Dom Capers, who we've been seeing around working with the defensive side of the ball. Now, Ryan Grigson's got an interesting background. It has not all went perfect with the Indianapolis Colts when he was the GM, because if that was the case, that's probably what he'd still be. He probably would still be a general manager. But it also does kind of remind me of John Dorsey. He's been known for some big things, like drafting Andrew Luck #1 overall in the draft. He came in there as a general manager. They were coming off a 2-14 season, and after that, for the next 3 seasons, they went 11-5. The success they did when he was there, winning 50, I think 2 games, both AFC South titles, do stick out. Obviously, Andrew Luck was a huge part of that, but there's also a lot of backlash that goes with it. Not only did he make some questionable decisions, but at the same time, he's also been blamed many times for kind of cutting Andrew Luck's career short, because he didn't put a very good offensive line around him, didn't protect the guy, and he's also been kind of called out by guys like Pat McAfee, okay, the Pat McAfee show, and some other former players as well that aren't happy with some of the decisions that he's made. They feel like because he was in power, he wanted to put a stamp on everything. But there has been some good moves within there. There's just also been a lot of backlash. What's really important here is just how much say he has over everything. And that was kind of the case with Dorsey, right? I mean, he had some very head-scratching decisions that he's made in the past. Some of the guys that he's drafted, like, why would he draft that? Like, from character issues and things like that. But at the same time, he's not the GM. He's just helping out and giving his input. He's the guy that you can bounce ideas off of. Ryan and Quezzy did work together at one point with the Cleveland Browns. He was on the Cleveland Browns staff when Quezzy was there as well. They're not hiring to be the GM. It's just how much input does he have. But I don't think it's a bad decision to get someone in there with experience that's been in that role before. But there is some backlash, especially from Vikings fans, with this move. He also won Executive of the Year in 2012. but also there were some mistakes in there, some big mistakes in there, like trading for Trent Richardson. I believe they traded a first-round pick for Trent Richardson, drafting a guy like Philip Dorsett in the first round of the draft. Now, onto the Bears side, there's a lot of coaches here. I could be missing some, depending on when you're watching this. This could update even more. They have had a ton of turnover because they already have their head coach in the building, Matt Eberflus, who was the defensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts. We talked about him last year. So they're already getting tons of movement going on. You can see all the positional coaches, the tight end coaches, the D-line. A couple ones that I did want to bring up, though, specifically here. First off, their offensive coordinator, Luke Getzy. I think, again, that's how you say his name. If I'm mispronouncing any of these, I apologize. Luke is a very interesting hiring because he's not a guy that actually has any, like, direct connections to Matt Eberflus, and usually that's what happens, especially with a new first-time head coach. They hire guys that they know. That's not really the case here with Luke. Now, they may have talked. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they got each other on Instagram or something. I don't know. Matt did say he wasn't necessarily looking for connections, right? He just wants to get to the best offensive coordinator, and he wants a guy that can help work with Justin Fields. He's a defensive mind. He's a defensive coach, so it's going to be his defense. We'll talk about the DC in a second, but he wants a guy that can help with Justin Fields and move forward with him as the future quarterback. And they've already said that they've started working on a few things with Justin Fields, including working on his turnovers and quicker decision making. And that makes a lot of sense, especially going back to college. I would say specifically quicker decision making was probably a knock on him big time coming out of the draft. So makes sense that they're working on those couple of things. Luke has done some pretty good things in the past, and he also has an experience being an offensive coordinator back when he worked with Mississippi State. Now, again, let's just say it didn't go great with Mississippi State. He was there in 2018. Statistically, they did get worse. They had less points per game in the year that he took over as the OC for the first year, a little bit over 3 points less per game, a little bit less rush yards per game, but they improved in terms of efficiency. And he also had Nick Fitzgerald, who put up a very similar stat line to the past season. He had a couple less turnovers and one more touchdown as their quarterback. But when you take a look at the schematic fit, it does make sense. Most recently been with the Green Bay Packers, and I guess this is the first time that the Bears have hired a guy from a rival team or something like that. Either way, he's been with the Green Bay Packers, and we know Aaron Rodgers is probably going to win. He was Green Bay's passing game coordinator, and he's been involved in, RPOs, run pass options offensively. Of course, you look at that Packers offense, this is a lot about quick decisions and getting the ball to Rodgers' hands very fast to stay on schedule a lot of time. Plus, he does have that background then working with Matt LaFleur of the Shanahan outside zone rushing type of scheme and how they utilize that. Probably their own little flavor on it with Matt LaFleur, but the same kind of thing. So that's who they hired as their offense coordinator. I do like the fact that he has experience. I think that's always nice, even though it didn't go great, just to be able to learn from that. But also, he didn't prioritize. He has to have connections with him, which, again, I think is not a bad thing. Now, sometimes it doesn't work out then, right? We kind of saw that a little bit with Anthony Lynn and the Detroit Lions, but I also don't think it needs to be a priority. You want to get the best guys and the guys that you think can help out, and it sounds like they feel like they can help out Justin Fields here. That's what they were really looking for with their offensive coordinator. On the defensive coordinator, they hired Alan Williams, another guy with connections in the NFC North. Interesting with Alan Williams, he's been with the Lions, he's been with the Vikings, and now here he is with the Chicago Bears. He was actually the Vikings defensive coordinator at one point, which is interesting. His background mainly is being a defensive backs, a secondary type of coach. And again, it's going to be Matt Eberflus's defense, and he was actually with the Indianapolis Colts recently for the past few years. So there is that connection, him bringing him in. You see that all the time. I feel like if a guy comes in and he's an offensive-minded coach or a defensive-minded coach, they usually hire a coordinator that they are familiar with, not necessarily a guy that's been it before, because he's just going to help out and help him work through it, but it's going to be his defense, I guess is the way you would put it. He does have some experience. He was the Vikings defensive coordinator going back to 2011. He's worked with some good coaches in the past, including guys like Mike Tomlin. Statistically, they actually got worse in points allowed per game the 2 years that he was there. Here before he joined, they were allowing 21.3 points per game, 5.2 yards per carry, which was really bad. I mean, it was 31st in the league, and a 74.6 passer rating, which was 11th in the National Football League. But the year he joined, they then allowed 23.7 points per game, 5.4 yards per carry, a little bit worse. That was last in the National Football League, and 81.2 passer rating, which is worse. Then in 2013, his final year with Minnesota as their defense coordinator, they allowed 24.4 points per game, a little bit worse, 4.9 yards per carry. It's a little bit better, but it's still terrible, 31st in the National Football League, and 76 passer rating. Definitely what sticks out here is his background working with defensive backs and safeties and things like that, because he also worked with the Detroit Lions. That's right. From 2014 to 2017, he was on Jim Caldwell's staff as our defensive backs / safeties coach, Jim Caldwell's time. And he was a part of our best defensive season in recent memory in 2014, when we were really good defensively. We had 20 interceptions. We were 9th in the National Football League in passer rating allowed. The next couple of seasons weren't very good. 2015 wasn't very good. You only had 9 picks. You You allowed over 100 passer rating. 2016 was bad. You allowed the highest passer rating in the National Football League, and you only had 10 interceptions. Big issue was here you lost some of those front guys. I mean, our front four was scary in 2014. That wasn't the case a couple years later. 2017, they got back on track a little bit, but it was Jim Caldwell's final season as the defensive coordinator there. So he also has that connection. So having some experience being a defensive coordinator, a lot of experience within the NFC North, it makes a lot of sense that you go with a guy that you have familiarity with at kind of the side of the ball that you're going to be coaching. So you have Richard Hightower, who is now going to be their special teams coach. They've had turnover everywhere. Richard Hightower has spent his last 5 seasons with the San Francisco 49ers as their special teams coach. And we know Robbie Gould has been very, very good through that time. Plus, they basically beat the Green Bay Packers with their special teams in their last showing. They did have one big addition, and this was Rich Bisaccia. I think I'm saying that right. Okay, so don't know who that is because I didn't know by the name. This was actually the Raiders' interim head coach. I feel like, hey, man, he had a shot to become their head coach. I thought he did have a shot to be their head coach for the next season after making the playoffs. I know they lost round 1, but I thought, hey, maybe they'd keep him around. But he was their special teams coach. Of course, then he was also their interim head coach in this past season. He was their special teams coach for the last few years with the Raiders. He was a pretty highly coveted name because, I mean, he just went from being an interim head coach that made the playoffs. It's kind of crazy. I feel like he had a shot to be the head coach, but it's kind of wild now he's back to the special teams coach position. But this is where the Packers need a lot of help. They were one of the worst special teams units in the National Football League. And for the past couple of years, the Raiders, since he's joined, have improved their special teams unit from 2018 being 19th to 25th in 2019, then 16th, then 11th this past season. And he's had a lot of experience in the National Football League. They're expecting that he's going to get a pretty nice payday as a special teams coach, but they definitely needed that. And then at the OC position, they just promoted from within because they lost their offensive coordinator, Hackett, to the Denver Broncos as their head coach. Maybe they're trying to get Aaron Rodgers in there. That's what it seems like. So they promoted their offensive line coach, Adam Stenovich, I think that's how you say his name, who is also their run game coordinator this past season. He took on that title as well. He's been their offensive line coach for a few years, but we know, again, that's Matt LaFleur's kind of specialty, so he didn't really need to go and do anything crazy with that side of the ball. No better way to wrap this thing up than with some quarterback talk. So we also heard from Jared Goff recently as he spoke about his routine this offseason. He's like, I've been in the league for a little while, so I already have routine, but he talked about 2 things that he wants to improve on specifically this offseason. He said he wants to get stronger and he wants to get faster. All right, hey, now that's kind of music to a lot of our Lions fans' ears. It has to be, right? Get a little bit stronger, maybe improve some of that arm strength a little bit, maybe get a little bit faster. I mean, he's never going to be like a rushing or a crazy mobile quarterback, but, you could always improve in those areas, and, we'll find out. We'll see where he's at next season. I mean, some guys, you just know that they put the work in, and they came back as a little bit of a different player. They came back a little different. Now, what he can control, aside from the scheme and things like that, is his body, is physically his body, and you'll know next season when you see him. I mean, you really will. You know if he looks a little bit different. We'll know in training camp. We'll know if he put that work in. Also knowing that they do believe he can be their future. I'm excited. I hope he does do that this offseason and he goes full in, dives in, and makes it happen. And he comes back a little bit stronger, maybe a little more arm power, comes back a little bit more mobile, maybe even just improving some of his spin outs out of the pocket because that was disgusting. Last season, I wasn't always at my best, and there was also times where I felt like I showed what I could do. So he's excited for next year. Excited, of course, to get the offensive line back, get Frank back, things like that. By the way, speaking of offensive line, Jonah Jackson was at the Pro Bowl. Shout out to him. Congratulations. And he was talking a little bit about this O-line. He's like, it'd be nice to get Decker and, all the guys on this offensive line here. And I'm thinking to myself, hold up, that could actually be a possibility where all these offensive linemen, I mean, in a situation where all these offensive linemen could actually be Pro Bowlers. I mean, Penei Sewell was awesome last year. Give him a full season. Hold up. Penei Sewell may have been our best offensive lineman. Decker, just the difference that he made was insane at left tackle. Frank Ragnow, one of the highest paid centers, maybe the best center in the National Football League. You're talking about an all-pro there. The fact that Jonah Jackson was already in it, and then Big V, who improved so much at right guard in that last season. If that starting 5 is the same, like I think a lot of expected to be next season, why not? Now, hopefully we're actually winning more than that because, that's what it's going to come down to. You win football games, you're usually getting a lot more Pro Bowl nods, but hopefully the Lions are in the Super Bowl and they don't get to play in the Pro Bowl. That would be the best. I don't know. I didn't really enjoy the Pro Bowl that much. I did enjoy Mac Jones taking off and giving him a little dance. I was like, oh, Steph, I see you, Mac. He had a little speed there, a little scoot. But aside from that, I really didn't enjoy that game that much. I feel like they could go different directions with it. But hey, if you do, that's good. That's all that matters, is that some people are enjoying it and they're enjoying and watching it. I just had it on in the background, so I really wasn't too invested. Plus, there really wasn't any Lions guys in it anyways. Quarterback position is an area where, yeah, you always want to improve. We want to figure out who is our future quarterback. Can it be Goff? Can he play like you finished last season, which was at an extremely high level? Can we continue to build upon that? You guys know my thoughts on Jared Goff. Can he be the guy? Do we need to draft somebody? Figuring that out is extremely important, no question about it. Continue to get caught up in this quarterback position where in my lifetime, the Lions have not been able to run the football. Last year was the most of a run game that I've ever seen. And they're still not where they want to be. They want to be a top rushing team, so let's go be that. And I'm assuming they're going to address that this offseason and try to get there. They hired the guys to get there. So it was much better, but the two things we have not really been able to do at all since I've been alive watching the Lions that I can remember is run the ball and play defense. Now, yes, we did have one good defensive year in 2014. I acknowledge that. We had a good defensive season in 2014, right? We had Sue. We had a crazy defensive line. We went 11-5 that season, but we have not had a good defense at all kind of consistently. I'm not even saying just good, just average. Like, we've been bad defensively, and even the run game. Yes, it started to come around this year, but up until this season, run game just wasn't a thing that went together with Detroit. It was Barry Sanders, and then it was absolutely no sort of run game whatsoever, and then until last year when the Lions really heavily addressed it. I'm assuming they're going to continue to do that. I'm not saying I don't believe the staff can, because I believe that they absolutely can. It's the tweet that went viral on Twitter that I put out there. Y'all know, hey, y'all saw it, where I was like, the Lions have to be able to find a way to build around their quarterback, because that's what it continues to be. Not only build around your quarterback, but also find a way to consistently have the same staff. You're always going to have changes when you're successful. Heck, we could have movement. We're not even that successful last year, but at the top, Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, can we constantly have that regime going forward and not have to restart in 3 to 4 years where we're in salary cap issues because we paid guys and now they're not here and the next guy doesn't want him, so now we have this mess going on. So it's like, can we have that consistency, but can we also build something aside from just getting so caught up in the quarterback spot? Yes, I agree, it's super important, but I'm watching guys like Jimmy Garoppolo, who's getting a similar payday, that's in the NFC Championship. Could have made another Super Bowl. You just see these rumors out there. Well, hold up. Should the Lions, go all in? Should they go make a trade for a guy like Kyler Murray? And yeah, I'm looking at that, and first off, just Kyler Murray alone, no, I would not give up tons of picks for Kyler Murray. I just wouldn't do it. Any team that I have, because first off, I don't believe Kyler Murray's that guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm going to be trading the amount of picks, which people are projecting at least 3 first-round picks and possibly Goff or whatever, something like that, if I'm going to be giving that up, not giving that up for Kyler Murray. I'm just going to be honest. I'm just not doing it. And I don't see Kyler Murray as that guy. Look at what happened last season. First off, his statistics, if you just want to play the numbers game, aren't much better than Goff's were last season. And the first half of the year was a mess offensively for us. But then there's also the fact that Kyler Murray, when he lost DeAndre Hopkins, they just fell completely apart. They fell apart. We beat that team 30-12. 30-12. The team that never lost on the road up until that game, 30-12, and they completely fell apart. They looked terrible in the playoffs. They fell apart after we beat them. And without DeAndre Hopkins, their offense was basically lost. So you're telling me your offense is lost without DeAndre Hopkins when you still have the weapons that they had, the A.J. Greens, the Rondale Moores, James Connors in the backfield. You made the trade to go get Zach Ertz. You're telling me with that, you can't be successful? Maybe more of that is on Cliff Kingsbury. Who knows? But to me, it's just not it. I know there's limitations within his game, but I would not be giving up 3 first-round draft picks for that. Heck, if we're going to give up 3 first-round draft picks, I'd rather the Detroit Lions, who apparently have a draft guy. That's what Brad Holmes is about, is the draft. We're going to build through the draft. I'd rather them take them 3 first-round picks and trade up and grab the quarterback that they love, whether that's this year or next year, than giving that to Kyler Murray. I personally, if you ask me, it's a no-go for me. Not at all. He's also in the last year of his rookie deal. So the only good thing that would come out of this is you would have a year to be like, okay, let's just see what he can do. Whether or not, okay, we want to extend him. So that's a good thing. But you're going to have to extend him then, which means he's going to be getting paid like a top quarterback. It's going to continue to reset itself. He'll be higher. He'll be more expensive than Jared Goff will be, right? So you'll be paying that guy. Honestly, if I can't get it done with rookie deal, Kyler Murray, right? This cheap contract, got all these weapons. Then how the heck am I going to get it done with $40 million cap hit? Kyler Murray, 4 times what he's getting paid on a cap hit for 2022. You're not going to get out paying a quarterback, and that's why I say, okay, well, what happens when you have this quarterback on a rookie deal? You may find a couple good years in there because he's cheap. Even if you do find a good year in there because he's cheap, what happens when he has to get paid? You just reset? You're just like, oh, well, we can't do it anymore. We got to go get a new quarterback, because you're going to eventually have to pay the guy. So can you build a team around paying a quarterback? That's what it's going to come down to for the Lions. That's what it comes down to every team ultimately, is can you pay a quarterback? Yeah, the quarterback has to be able to take you over the top. It's why the Rams made the trade that they did. But can you also build a team around him where you can stay competitive while paying a quarterback? Because if you can't do that, I just don't see how you're going to find consistent success. Yeah, you may peak here and there, and we'll see what the Bengals do. You know, they went 10-7 this year. Can they pay Joe Burrow and continue to be that team? We know their cap's in a beautiful spot now, but 2-3 years from now, it's not going to be the case. So I'd rather the Lions, if they're going to go shell out picks for Kyler Murray, I'd rather them just say, hey, we're going to go use our 2-3 draft picks, whatever it is, and go get a quarterback that we love in the draft because we're going to be building to the draft, possibly get that fifth-year option, at least have a longer, window of that rookie deal if we're going to do it. No way I'd do that for Kyler Murray, because then what happens if it doesn't work out and it's like, oh, he wasn't a great fit for us? Then now you gave up 3 first-round picks. So there you go. That was a waste. So no, I wouldn't do that. So just that whole rumor, it's like, come on, man, can we just focus on building our team? That's what it comes down to for me is the draft. And speaking of the draft, how about Aiden Hutchinson? So Aiden Hutchinson on the Pat McAfee show today. I love the show. They're in a different spot. I don't know why they're in a different place for the Super Bowl, I think. I don't know where they were, but they spoke to Aiden Hutchinson, and I didn't even know he was going to be on the show. I was like, oh, snap, I'll listen to that. Spoke to Aiden Hutchinson, and I have to bring up what he talked about schematically, because this, hey, if the Lions draft him at 2, it's very possible, especially if the Jags go O-line at 1, and I'm down for that because Hutchinson to me is the best player in the draft from what I've seen so far. If Hutchinson's available at 2, I'm taking him. Here's what Aiden Hutchinson said. We know that last season the Ravens' defense was more NFL-like. It was more like ours. It was a 3-4 defense. So Hutchinson played more of a stand-up role. Yeah, occasionally they put him down and they squeeze him inside. But for the most part, it was a stand-up 2-point stance role. He said that he felt playing in a 2-point stance, that stand-up outside linebacker role, really allowed him to explode in that NFL style of defense with the Baltimore Ravens. So he said he would like to play. They asked him, what would you like to do at the next level? Would you like to play in a 4-3 versus 3-4 defense? He's like, I'd like to play in a 3-4 defense. And yeah, he does prefer the 2-point stance role over 3-point hand in the dirt type of role because a little bit more athleticism. Felt like it helped him explode as a pass rusher. So when I'm hearing that, I'm like, oh snap, hold up. I think the Lions are going to continue to do that next season. So that got me hype, of course. And then he talked a little bit about the combine and said, of course I'm doing everything in the combine. I'm not scared to go do everything in the combine. By the way, the guy is super confident. Just listening to him talk. He said, I'm not scared of doing anything in the combine. I'm going to do it. We're training for it right now. It's about 3 weeks out. And he said, and I'm going to go light it up. I'm going to go light up a combine. He said he's looking at about 35 bench press reps, hopefully. He said he's going to light it up. He said, yeah, I'm pretty athletic. So he's going to light up the drills, apparently. We'll see how he does in that. I think a lot of people believe that he can light up those drills. But, man, I got me pumped when he said that he would like to play in that kind of role. I'm like, oh, that'd be perfect. And then, of course, he talked about, going to the Lions. He said, yeah, that'd be cool because of how close it is and things like that. But that just stuck out to me. So if you're wondering about schematic fit with Aiden Hutchinson, well, there you go, okay? I think we knew by the film he could fit because he can definitely drop, okay? I know he's not like 250 like Kayvon and things like that, but I think it's easy to just look at his size and be like, well, he's not that. Well, hold up. He may be 265 and he could always probably lose some weight, but the guy can still drop. I mean, let's not act like the guy can't move. Let's not act like he's not like a super athlete still off the edge, okay? Like he can't bend around the edge and he can't drop into coverage because we've seen him do all the above at Michigan. But anyways, that just got me a little hype. And then, of course, I'm seeing these things about, Jimmy Garoppolo. Should the Lions go trade for Garoppolo? Heck no. Okay, if I thought the Kyler Murray thing was crazy, don't even throw the Jimmy Garoppolo stuff at me. First off, the guy's 30 years old, so he's already older than Jared Goff. Thing is with Jimmy G, I don't see any kind of, he can be our future quarterback. I'm not saying 30 is super old, but I just don't see it. First off, the guy's cap hit is very similar to Jared Goff. It's a little bit less, but it's similar to Jared Goff. 2022 is the last year he's under contract, so you'd have to be paying him again. I just don't see how he'd be your future quarterback. I believe Goff is better than Garoppolo. I think a lot of Niners fans would agree with that. I just don't see how the future there with Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, are we really even improving at this point? I don't see it. I don't understand it. You're going to be paying him a year into it anyway. So no, I don't like the Jimmy Garoppolo craziness either. You just have to continue to go with the plan that you originally put in place. The plan is you have Goff again next season. You let him go out there and play. If you love someone in this year's draft, find a way to go get him. No matter where that is throughout the draft, go get that guy. If you love that player, don't force it. Then you see how Goff plays his next season. If he plays well, you can go forward with Goff because he's still under contract for 2 more seasons. If he doesn't play well, you have a potential out, so you can either go to that new guy you brought in or draft someone new in that upcoming draft. And heck, you'd be better off if you want to grab a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, just letting him play out his final season, wherever that may be. As long as that team doesn't give him an extension, just let him hit free agency and then sign him then. But no, sir. And then, of course, the Tua stuff, where apparently Josh McDaniels, he's very excited to work with him, and it looks like Josh McDaniels, who's the new head coach of the Dolphins, thinks he can make him a stud. Look, I'm not a Tua fan, so again, I'm not going to really entertain that one either. He's coming off a bad year. There was talk like, oh, some players don't believe they can win with him. Don't know who said it or if it's actually true. His statistics were not very good. You could argue they were worse than Jared Goff last season, across the board. However, I'm not even a Tua guy anyway, so again, I'm not even going to mess around with that. To me, it just doesn't make sense. Why would I trade for Tua? It's a good good thing with Tua is that he is under contract for a few more years, but it does sound like McDaniels is going to, take that, and he believes that, they can go forward with him as a quarterback. But I'm not a Tua fan. I haven't been a Tua fan since he was drafted. So no, I would not make a trade for Tua either. You need to have a quarterback. I understand it's the most important position, but at the same time, it's like, man, can we build something else? Because I'm telling you, if you had Tua Tagovailoa last year, you're not better. You're not better. You may hold on. I'll give you the benefit. You win another game. You're not better. You're still bad. Okay. Jimmy Garoppolo, you're not better. Kyler Murray, it's a disaster. The guy's offense, and again, more of this could be on Cliff Kingsbury, fell apart without Hopkins. What do you think he would have done without Taylor Decker and without an outside receiver? You're telling me my top receiver, my outside receivers are Kadero Hodge, Amon-Ra St. Brown, no TJ Hutchinson, no, hold up. What are we doing here? Nah. No, thank you. So anyway, I just thought I'd point out those rumors. I'm not on board with them. You can be, but that's just not my cup of tea. Anyway, let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thought we'd dive into some of the latest things around the North and for the Lions. Thank you for watching. Have a good day, and I'm out.